Today we're going to talk about the top 10 player cards of the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle of the Lord of the Rings card game. That is a cycle that has not been reprinted outside of maybe some cards being featured in the Rohan starter deck, but nonetheless it's a key part of the memory of Lord of the Rings card game players, especially those that were around back in 2012 or so. And I'm putting together a larger video, a retrospective on the entire game of the Lord of the Rings card game. If you want to see that video when it's released, be sure to subscribe to Jackson Warfield's Game Room. Now let's jump into these player cards. First, some honorable mentions. Hero Bilbo gets an honorable mention here because he was the first hero in any expansion pack and is a bit of a weird card. So Hero Bilbo has a threat cost of 9, which is strangely high for a character that doesn't really do that much, but he does give you extra card draw. If you are playing single-handed in the Lord of the Rings card game, you get Bilbo, you basically get 2 cards per round, which is really good. He's not quite in the top 10 here. Second honorable mention is Bran, Son of Bane, who can be a very effective hero. And actually, if I'm not wrong, is he subject to errata? Wasting a lot of time here. The way Bran, Son of Bane, son of Bard the Bowman, so Bran, grandson of Bard the Bowman, works. When he attacks and destroys an enemy engaged with someone else, he readies one of their players, which is pretty cool. Can be pretty useful. That doesn't happen that much, especially it doesn't happen at all if you play single-handed. Bran, Son of Bane is a little bit inefficient with having his high threat costs, but having a questing, having a willpower number and a defense number that you rarely use. So he's a little bit overcost in my opinion, so he doesn't quite make the top 10. Bran, Son of Bane is the best card from the Hills of Emyn Spoiler alert, the Hills of Emyn does not have any player cards in this list. It was kind of a adventure pack. The quest is pretty bad too. We'll talk more about that in a retrospective video. I also want to give an honorable mention to the song cards that allow you access to multiple spheres, because before you have those cards, deck building in Lord of the Rings card game was very difficult. Now, number 10 is Prince Imrahil. Imrahil? The hero card from A Journey to Razgabel. What Prince Imrahil does is he readies when you lose a character. The reason why Prince Imrahil is good is, 1, he's pretty strong, and 2, you lose characters all the time in Lord of the Rings card game. You basically get a double hero here after the first few turns of the game. Prince Imrahil is also more efficient than Bran, Son of Bane, because he's readying himself. He can better take advantage of, say, attack and then defense. In fact, you can defend with him, someone else gets knocked out, and then it is ready to go attack. That's actually a very useful combo. So Prince Imrahil is number 10 over Bran, Son of Bane. Number 9. Vassal of the Windlord. Despite the fact that Eagle decks were never really a thing, Vassal of the Windlord makes the list as number 9. This is effectively 1 cost for an attack of 3. It's very useful, and if you really need, you can use him as a chump blocker too. And especially when deck building options were very limited back when Shadows of Mirkwood came out. Vassal of the Windlord is a card you need to have in any tactics deck, because it was actually still pretty difficult to get a lot of attack together. You didn't have a lot of characters that had attacks of 3, and a lot that had attacks of 2, not a lot with attacks of 3. So Vassal of the Windlord is number 9. Number 8, Campfire Tales. Campfire Tales it's an event card where you pay 1 resource and every player draws a card. So this is kind of useless when you're playing single player, because there are a lot more efficient ways to get card draw. But you play with 2, 3, especially 4 players, excellent source of card draw. And it's in leadership, which is good because most of the card draw cards in Lord of the Rings card game, especially at this point in the game, were part of the lore sphere. Campfire Tales is also the highest ranked card from the Hunt for Gollum. Campfire Tales is number 8. Number 7, Fast Hitch. Fast Hitch wasn't really used until Hobbit decks became a thing, which started to happen when you had the Lord of the Rings Saga expansions come out. But Fast Hitch is Unexpected Courage, which raises a character, but for hobbits, so it's cheaper. If you have hobbits, in fact, if you have only 1 hobbit and you have access to the lore sphere, you almost want to auto-include 3 copies of a Fast Hitch. It's that efficient of a card. Even a hobbit, for 1 cost, being able to ready and get a hobbit to do a hobbit thing multiple times, that's a good card. So Fast Hitch, it's number 7. That's from the Dead Marshes. Number 6, Escort from Edoras. This might be a surprising card to put on the list here. Escort from Edoras costs 2 and has a willpower of 2, but when you quest with Escort from Edoras, they effectively get a willpower number of 4, and then they say, see you later. I don't quite understand why a Rohan character would do that. I guess they're really, really busy. That's a really effective thing, because even though you only get technically 4 questing points in the game out of 2 resources, the timing is key, because you can put this character in play, and then when you really need a big questing push, which a big part of Lord of the Rings card game is getting a big questing push together, escort from Edoras gets you over the hump. It's like having Gandalf in there for questing, and that's, you get 4 willpower from Gandalf, and he has to leave too. So escort from Edoras, number 6 card in the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle. Escort from Edoras from A Journey to Rhosgobel. Number 5, Frodo, the hero card from Conflict at the Carrick. Spirit Frodo, what he does is when you defend, instead of taking damage on Frodo, you can instead increase your threat. It's the Shadows of Mirkwood example of a gambling addiction, or getting into illegal crime, getting into organized crime or something like that. It might seem like you can handle a little bit at first, but eventually greed gets the best of you and you get sunk because of how much you used Frodo. Frodo's an excellent card, and his strong questing, he gets access to Hobbit attachments, which do get better as the game goes on. He helps you if you want to put together a secrecy deck, which is a thing that came along later. I'm just going to allude to a lot of things right now. He would be the second best spirit hero for quite some time, at least for another, well, into probably 2013 or so. So Frodo, easily number 5 for Shadows of Mirkwood cards. Number 4, Ancient Matham. Ancient Matham is an attachment card, but you don't attach Ancient Matham to your characters, you attach Ancient Matham to a location. When you explore that location, the first player gets 3 cards. Now this is a little bit random, you obviously can't control who gets card draw when you do that, but getting 3 cards for 1 resource, excellent efficiency there. Plus, you usually have some control over when you decide to explore a location. You decide, like, are we going to explore this now? If the player needs card draw, you absolutely do it. Plus, you can have multiple of these out at the same time. You could potentially explore multiple occasions in a round, and someone gets 6 card draw. And player you want to get card draw isn't necessarily the player with the spirit resources that bought this card. You might want it to go to someone else. You might want it to, for example, go to your leadership player if you're playing, cooperatively, as opposed to your spirit player, because they might be seeing a lot of resources they have to spend. So Ancient Matham is number 4. Ancient Matham is from Journey to Rhosgobel. The Journey to Rhosgobel having 3 cards on the list is well represented. Number 3, Boromir. Tactics Boromir, that is, from the Dead Marshes. So that's now also 3 cards from the Dead Marshes in the top 10. Boromir is such a good card, he had to get an errata. So what Boromir does is you can ready Boromir in exchange for increasing your threat by 1. This is really good. And they had to errata it because you could easily take advantage of that and just, like, say, defend against, like, 20 attackers with Boromir, and that's not really fair. So they made it so you can only do this once per phase. Similar to Frodo, where you're kind of mortgaging your future to get an impact in the present, Boromir can nonetheless be very effective because Boromir is a strong card that you're running multiple times. Especially if you need to get attacks out, Boromir can crank out a lot of attacks. Again, I don't really like cards like Boromir where you have to, accelerate your table state by increasing your threat that much, but you could argue in some spots you'd rather spend a threat, you lose one of those, that goes up once per round, than you would a resource or 2. You don't have quite the same slush fund to start the game with resources as you do with threats. So Boromir can be really good for making sure your team gets off to a good start. Boromir also has this cool effect where he can, do 1 damage to every enemy play, and then he leaves play, which is kind of like what happened in the actual Lord of the Rings story. Actually, what happens in the Fellowship of the Ring / the Two Towers, if you actually read the books. In the books, it might have actually happened during the Two Towers. But you don't even need that. In fact, I don't think I've ever used that. Boromir, just with his threat increasing ability, sounds bad when you put it that way. The number 3 card of Shadows of Mirkwood. Number 2, a Burning Brand. Also errated. A Burning Brand is a lore attachment from Conflict at the Carrick. Not Carrick. What Burning Brand does is allow you to cancel 1 shadow effect per turn. Amazing. It was even more amazing before when you could cancel every shadow effect attacking against a certain defending lore character. And it only costs 2, which would be 2 hasty stroke cancellations. And you're getting this from a different sphere than Spirit, which is nice because all your Spirit resources need to go to the other really good Spirit cards that came in the core set. So Burning Brand, arguably the best lore card to this point in the game. Burning Brand is the number 2 card of the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle. And number 1, if you play the game, you kind of expected this to be coming. Dane Ironfoot. I think it's actually Dine, because that's how Tolkien had these very specific pronunciations. Like if you see DHE would be the, where THE is the. Gimli, son of Glóin.
Gimli, son of Glóin, and Legolas of the Woodland Realm.
It's not Glóin, but it might be Glóin. Dane just sounds better, to be honest. Dane Ironfoot is the best character of any kind in Shadows of Mirkwood. He has a claim to the throne, not just Under the Mountain, but of the entirety of Lord of the Rings card game for best card. Dane Ironfoot, as long as he is ready, all dwarf characters you control get +1 willpower. And this is very easy to do because Dane is a defender. He's got 3 defense and 5 health. Dwarf characters also get +1 attack. It's absurd. It's at the point where when you're looking at dwarf characters, especially shortly after Dane was first released, so we're talking Khazad-dûm and the Dwaro Delph cycle, every dwarf character you just assumed had +1 willpower and sometimes +1 attack. It single-handedly created a whole meta to the game where dwarves are just monsters and were easily the best deck you could run with. Completely overshadowed the Rohan and Eagles decks that were kind of cobbled together after Shadows of Mirkwood. You already had him when you got all these other dwarf cards, because also the Hobbit saga came out not long after this, so dwarves were all over the place, and Dine was the best one of them. So Dine Ironfoot is the best card from Shadows of Mirkwood. And that's your top 10. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you want to see a retrospective on the card game, stay tuned for that. This is Jackson Warfield's Game Room. We'll see you in the next one.
Jackson Warfield.